Good morning. Well, we continue with the Gospel of John. Now we see Pilate now being forced to make a decision about Jesus. Pilate was the Roman governor, and the Romans were very legalistic. They wanted to do everything properly. So when the chief priests bring Jesus before Pilate, and remember, it's still very, very early in the morning, Pilate is well aware of what they're up to because he had released soldiers to go with the temple guards to arrest Jesus. So he's well aware of what is happening. But they bring him before Pilate. And Pilate says, right, you've brought him before me. Now, where are the witnesses? Judas is dead. There are no witnesses. Even the chief priests couldn't find anybody, two witnesses, to agree that Jesus said anything in particular. There is no evidence, actual evidence, to hand on to Pilate. And Pilate gets suspicious. He says, no, I'm not going to be trapped with this. I'm not going to be trapped with this. He says, if you want to punish him, he says, you take him away and you punish him. And they say to him, but we don't have the right to execute. Only the Romans have the right to execute, and this man must be executed. And Pilate says, but there are no witnesses against him. What are the charges against him? Now, just as an aside for a moment, the right to execute and the right to govern was regarded as very, very important, and they were very closely linked. In other words, if a society was truly going to be able to govern a people, they had to have the right to both imprison and, if necessary, to execute, to take a person's life. Remember, I was saying when I was dealing with the Old Testament, how cities of refuge were put up. So if a person died by manslaughter, for instance, and by accident, he had to get to the city of refuge where he would present his case. And if the magistrates there decided it was an accident, he was told he could stay in the city of refuge and not be molested by the person who was going to come searching for him, the family member who was designated to come and take his life. He could stay in the city of refuge and be safe there against that particular charge. But when murder had taken place, when a person had actually killed maliciously and murdered somebody, then they should be executed. And that was the rules under which the Jews were working at that time. But sometime before these events, when Jesus was on trial, the right to execute had been taken away from the Jewish people. It had happened, in fact, about 20-odd years before this event. When it happened, the leaders of Judaism were distraught. They felt that their whole right to governing the people had been taken away. And we are told there was great wailing and great protests going on because the Romans had taken away the right to actually execute. Because they knew, you see, they knew the scriptures and they knew the prophecies. And the prophecies said quite simply that they would maintain this particular right until Messiah had come. And Messiah hadn't come. And yet this right to execute had been taken away. Of course, what they didn't realize at that moment was that up in Nazareth, a young boy named Yeshua ben Yosef, Yeshua son of Joseph, or Yeshua ben Heli, as he's often known, under his grandfather's name, because people knew that Mary and Joseph was not the father of the child. So sometimes he was called Yeshua ben Yosef, and sometimes he was called Yeshua ben Heli, his grandfather's name. But in Nazareth, at that particular time, this young boy had just had his Bar Mitzvah. He had become a man. They didn't know it, but the Mashiach, the Messiah, was already amongst them. And the Old Testament prophecies were correct, that they would retain this right to govern and to execute until Messiah had come. And it is at this moment, about 20 years before, that this right was taken away. Jesus was about 11 years of age. Anyway, getting back from that, again, you see, something to understand, that God intended Jesus to be crucified, and to be crucified by Gentiles and to the accusation of the Jews. Both of them are responsible, Jew and Gentile. We must remember that, Jew and Gentile. People often think about these events and they say, oh, the Jews are guilty of deicide. In other words, they lifted up their hands and they killed God incarnate. But in fact, it was the Romans as well who were involved in it, and God wanted both to be involved. If the right of execution had not been taken away, then Jesus would have been stoned. But he could not be stoned because they did not have the right to actually do it. Not officially anyway. It might take place as a part of a riot, but they couldn't officially pronounce this particular punishment and have people stone them. Oh, another small point. The reason they stoned them was that they didn't want to touch them when they killed them. In other words, they would throw a stone at them and kill them in that way, rather than physically touch a person that they were killing. That's just a small aside. I don't know why anybody's interested in it, but that's why the stoning would have taken place. Anyway, we'll get back to this again tomorrow. Amen.